In today's In Detail segment, we're going to be reviewing kitchen design in townhomes, and all of the examples that we've taken are from the Chicago area.
As you remember from the slow home test, a kitchen has a compact work area with ample storage, continuous work surfaces, and a reasonable number of appliances.
So when I looked through all of the townhomes in Chicago and looked at the plans of the kitchens, I have to say overall they weren't so bad. So this is one of the first cities that we've seen. Yeah, they weren't so bad. There's a few areas where they're consistently making sort of basic design errors, and we're going to point those out today, but overall pretty good. So as you remember from the What's Wrong with This House book, we've come up with some rules of thumb for kitchen design, and they are: in a slow home, the kitchen should be an appropriate size with no unnecessary appliances, and it should be connected with and properly oriented to the other principal living spaces.
The third rule of thumb is that it should have an efficient work triangle and continuous counter surfaces, and the fourth is that it should not have a layout with unnecessary angles that reduce functionality. So, you brought some examples to have a look at?
I have, and I brought some good and some bad ones. And we're going to start out with a few good ones. Now, this one I thought was actually pretty good because it's well located in plan.
Yeah.
This is an L-shaped kitchen with an island, but I do want to point out a couple things that are kind of interesting. Is they've got this sort of pantry space here, which is connected with the kitchen and also provides a walk-through to the dining. And I think that's actually a pretty effective use of space because it's not a huge kitchen, but there's lots of storage. It's got a good relationship to the family room as well. So here's my other example. This is a galley kitchen, and this is actually well located in plan as well. And I saw a bunch in Chicago that were completely walled off on this side. In this case, they've actually opened that up.
Oh, right.
And that's not a bad way of doing it. I would actually detail this a little differently. I would make this an eating bar so that you could actually have some stools here behind the circulation. That would improve this even more. But the proportion of that alley is appropriate. It's about 3.5 feet. I think the triangle of appliances is appropriate, and plus there's a little bit of that extra storage. So overall, I think that one's pretty good.
Yeah.
This is another one that I think is pretty good, and this is a galley with a peninsula, and this does have seating. It's well located in plan by the back door.
Except for the entrance isn't so good.
Yeah, but it's in terms of its relationship to the rest of the space. I mean, this is an issue with the powder room. We're going to see that again and again.
It's hard in a townhouse.
You don't have very much square footage, but I'm just saying in terms of the overall layout, the width of the alley, about 3.5 feet, the size of the triangle, and the amount of counters, that's fair. That's well detailed. So now let's look at some ones that are problematic. So this is what we see a lot, and this is where the proportion of the kitchen is too big in relationship to the living and dining space. This is probably verging on a little bit more than a third of the space, but it's actually not a very effective layout because we've got a really long counter and a peninsula, sort of a useless island, and not enough room for a breakfast area.
No, it's not really big enough, is
No,
it?
it's too big, but it's not big enough for a table. And then this is the torture right there, is the fact that the powder room is right opposite, and I don't even like it when they put the laundry there opposite the breakfast area.
Well, it's interesting because those are some of the same situations that we dealt with yesterday in the design project.
Yeah, exactly. And so that one's not very good. Okay, this is another one. This is typical in a townhouse where we've got a U-shaped kitchen, and the problem is the U is too big. And there's too much floor space in the U. Plus, with the dining room here, this is one of those situations where, with the view, you're looking right into the part of the kitchen.
So that really makes the dining room not very formal, doesn't it? It feels like it's part of the kitchen.
Exactly.
Just
it feels like a kitchen table. Like if they had redetailed this as a U the other way, like that way, or if they made it into an island, that would solve that problem because it's very tentative in that way. And so this is not. There's not enough stuff in terms of the detail of that. Okay, this is where we're starting to get into problems. Okay, so we've got the kitchen in the middle of the plan.
Which in and of itself isn't a bad thing.
No, it's not a bad thing, but look what's happened here. So we've got we've got our terrible 45-degree angle with the sink on the diagonal, a useless island. Look at this, optional refrigerator, as if that's an option. Like, I don't choose to have the refrigerator in my kitchen. Well, what are you going to do? It's not 1922. You don't have an ice box, right? And then look at our appliance triangle. Again, we've got these two close. You've got a pole vault over that silly little island to get to your optional refrigerator.
I thought you said all the kitchens were good in these.
No, I'm showing these are some and then we've tacked on a little bit of extra residual counter over
really
here. I mean, that one's not very good. So that's not very well. This is another issue. Okay, now I want to point this out because this is really interesting. We've got our little pass-through for our dining room. Again, we've got this L-shaped kitchen, which is a bad proportion to start with. A huge laundry area and the powder room right off. This is interesting. Kitchen and breakfast. Where would you put the breakfast table, John Brown?
Not
you're an architect. I would like you to detail that for me right now.
I would put it in this unit. That's where I put it.
Well, I think they want you to put it like a tiny table, like right there in front of the toilet.
No,
like,
it just doesn't make any sense.
No, it's bad.
And there's so much room that you could easily have gotten rid of that conflict with the powder.
But why do we have such a big laundry room?
No,
with a little window? It just doesn't make any sense. Okay, so now this is this is another example. This is where the kitchen becomes circulation, right?
Yeah,
We've seen this again and again. You have to move through this to get anywhere in this house, and then they've created these little walls. We don't really have enough. Again, what's with the optional refrigerators in Chicago? Like, they almost don't want people to have them. And then you've got to walk through here to get to the powder room. There's a lot of traffic, a lot of foot traffic.
I think just to be fair, if they say optional, it means that it's not included in the sale price.
Yeah, I understand. I'm being facetious, but I'm
just
I'm driving a point home.
Your sense of humor.
Yeah, here's another one. This is in the center of the plan. Again, same issue, kitchen breakfast. You got to be careful when they say kitchen breakfast, because they think that the table's going to go here. It's not really big enough for a table. They've cheated. This is only 12 inches wide here. That's not wide enough for a counter. There's not enough counter space here. It's too small.
Yeah.
That's our last example.
Wow. Well, that's pretty interesting. I thought that things were going well for kitchens.
Well, those are the only 5 bad ones in all of Chicago. All right, okay. Everyone else is perfect.
Everybody else in Chicago is perfect. Well, perfect. All right. Well, that's our in detail analysis of kitchens in townhomes in Chicago.